Okay. Welcome, everyone. So as we get started and as you get settled, if you can either type in the chat or because it's a small group of us, if you would like to say where you are zooming in from today, if you happen to know who were the first earth keepers of the land that you're on at the moment, which could be different than usual. So that might be a question you have to research more. And I will acknowledge and let you know and introduce myself. I'm not going to put it in the chat. My name is Phoebe Morad. I'm Executive Director of Lutherans Restoring Creation. And I'm also doing the tech job here. So I'll keep interrupting myself to make sure people get in. And I welcome you all. And as we are acknowledging the fact that there were people since time immemorial that took care of the land that we find ourselves on today, trying to take care of. I do want to highlight the fact that I happen to be in Massachusetts, which is named after the Massachusetts people who actually cared for the land that I'm on here in Braintree, Massachusetts. I'm going to share my screen for a moment to share a really awesome resource that just came out, and I don't know if you all have had a chance to check it out yet. So I'm going to share. Can you guys see my screen, the American Indian and Alaska Native? You can see that. I just wanted to highlight this because I think it's really, we know that in 2019, sorry, I am going to mute some people just because we have some background noise, and then I'll unmute. Or if you can mute yourself, that would be good too. Because it takes me longer to go through and mute, and then I'll unmute everybody. Okay. I just wanted to highlight this because even though it was way back in 2016 that we repudiated the doctrine of discovery, and we've been talking about it and thinking about it. Now, thankfully, the desk director, Vance Blackfox, is in that seat. We have some resources so that we're not just kind of grasping at what to do next and how to make a land acknowledgement, not just a blurb in your bulletin, but how to actually talk about this in some resources. So what I'd like to highlight to you now as well, that I was looking through, and again, this is our gratitude meeting. I'm really grateful for this. If you see here, when you open up the fact that he puts in a lot of great resources and samples, but there's one here too that it says California Indian Culture and Sovereignty Letter, and it seems like it might just be for California. That one had some of the best writing I've seen yet. So really just take your time to look through this document. I won't make you too dizzy looking at it now, but I really appreciate that the time was spent in this. And I know my congregation is going to attempt to start throughout the winter, I'm hoping have discussions about it so that it doesn't just show up as a land acknowledgement in our bulletin and people don't know what this is about, that it's going to be something that we discuss with each other and come to a conclusion about how do we acknowledge the land, but also how do we move forward with communities among us that have Indigenous roots. So anyways, I just wanted to highlight that. Now that I think we're done admitting new people, I might interrupt myself again to do that. And I appreciate everybody putting in the chat where they're from and and who are the first keepers of the land near them. Now, it would be quite the hurdle for a lot of us to pronounce. Maybe that's the challenge for next time. Make sure we know how to actually pronounce them, because I think that's another hurdle. How I'd like to open us with a bit of a devotion. I'm going to share screen again. Hold on, I'm going to stop share. This is me not being incredibly tech savvy, but trying to do too many things. I would like to share the thing that I am most grateful for is all of you. And throughout, since I think it was 2 years ago, we asked for, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day was 20 years ago, 2 years ago, right? I don't know, it's all a blur now. But we had asked people to we were putting together kind of a thank you card. Thank you, God, for creation. So we started this PowerPoint a couple of years ago, and it's grown and grown and grown. And I didn't realize it was about 5 minutes long or so to watch. I want you all to see that because it's a lot of different people's sharing of what really has sustained them. And I feel like the past 3 months of calls that we've had, we keep telling you what to do, what's in dire need of doing and how are we going to do it, which is great and all, but at a certain point you need to feed yourself with what sustains you to keep going. So that's what I'd like to share for just about 5 minutes here. I'm going to share my screen again, and I think I got this. And then I go to, no, not that one. No, hold on. Wait a minute. I'm gonna stop share again. Oh, I had it up. Hold on. Here we go. It's gonna be worth it, just you wait. Now tell me too, though, if when I share this, if it's just too small to see properly. Is it really too small to see those going by? You can't read them, can you?
So I can see it and I can read it. Is there any audio? Because there's no audio.
No, thank you for that prompt though, because I was going to just let you sit back and listen to this. I happen to know that tortoise. It's a good tortoise. So I did want to point out to the fact that I noticed that how many people, they did send in scripture. A lot of people wanted to share scripture that they felt sustained them. But how many people just really wanted to recognize that someone in their life was really the key sustenance to inspire their creation care ministries. So I do say that to recognize and to remind you all that you don't know if you're that person to others in others' lives. So just remember that that you could be exactly the sustenance that others need, even if it's that, you know, one message that you share from the pulpit during a temple talk, or a note as a teacher that you happen to say to a student that you'll never see again once they, you know, move on. It is those individual relationships that really are sustaining to us and life-changing. And I think with a big event like COP26 happening and us looking to world leaders to make big differences, which they need to do, we can't lose sight of the fact that our role in this is just as critical. So I do say that and want to lift up all of these individual references to what feeds us, because we're going to need it going ahead, and we need to spend more time considering what we're grateful for. And I hope you don't just get to it once a week at church. I hope you get to it around a dining room table every night, or, you know, I'd love to hear from you when you find time to be grateful, that it's not just Thanksgiving. Oops. I'm sorry, someone's in the waiting room. Sorry, Leslie. Who knows how long I made her wait? I'm sorry. So I say all that though, also to let you know and to visualize the one other thing, since I'm going to take the floor for a couple more minutes and share what I'm most grateful for. I'm going to share screen again and just visually also share, well, some photos from people. You guys all see the map that I have up here? Okay. So what I wanted to share and highlight is that there's a lot of great energy going on across our ELCA ministries throughout the country. And again, this isn't just advocacy work or just pastors who happen to preach on climate change. It's all of that and more. So to remember that you don't have to do all of it at the same time. Everybody's doing a piece. So that's what all the different colors I hope really represents. But I also want to highlight that now you should be able to, hopefully this works now, if not just email me, but now you're able to add what it is you do and add your own marker. But also if you don't have anything to add and you want to know who's closest to you, or even if they're not close to you now, you can connect with them via Zoom and find out, how do you figure out how to do a garden in that kind of climate? Or how do you find funding? Or can somebody else speak? Because I certainly don't want to. Those are all the kind of assets and resources that we have that are able to sustain us. I'm sorry, hold on. All right, Phoebe is dealing with way too many different technologies here at once. Okay. All right. So those are the things that I wanted to highlight. And I am going to take a moment now to also share some things to bring to the table that quite literally what sustains us is food. And I know that I think it was back in May that we had one of the most refreshing connection calls we've ever had, was based on 3 different stories from 3 very different types of churches, examples using their soil to really feed their communities. And one of these examples was Pat Harper speaking from St. Stephen's here in Chicago. And so I wanted to lift this up. Pastor Booker Vance had sent us these pictures that their market is now going strong. Now, oh, those pictures are really small. It's a gorgeous, the actual garden is gorgeous. And they have this little plot of land that they make a lot of food on. And not only do they have this food growing, but then they also, the first picture you saw here, these are business students from the University of Chicago that were involved in helping the farmers market. I just love how many different members of the community come in and are literally fed by this, but also spiritually fed. And how you can tell that, oh, those are my kids in a tree. I'm also grateful for that. But I wanted to share those pictures, just quite literally to remember, what does sustain us day to day. And then there are a few other stories, but I'm going to stop talking for a moment because there are some people on the call that if you feel like you would like to share during this part, even though it's recorded, I would love you to unmute and share your story or food, soul food, or something that keeps you going. Anybody want to unmute? Go right ahead. Sharon, we hear some background noise, so you might have to be a little loud.
Okay. As I'm thinking here, I'm a farmer's daughter.
Yeah.
And I grew up not necessarily being grateful for smelly cows, as I used to call them, until we lived in a place where they used some grain that smelled like oranges and lemons, and we just sat in it. That's one of my earliest excitements. But as I came to teach Sunday school, I challenged my students in June one year. And I said, this is what I want you to do. If you're taking a ride this summer, ask your parents to stop by a field of hay and just listen and smell. And when we came back in September, it had slipped my mind. It was in my notes, but I didn't remember it. And one little boy raised his hand and said, Miss Sharon, I did it. And I'm like, what did you do? And he said, I stopped by the field and the hay spoke to me. And I was just, I so often think of that in this world and how important a city child who'd never stopped at a field of hay before. And I said, this is God's creation. And I smile every time I think about it. I do butterfly gardens and all of that, but that one touching moment, because I often will stop by Farmer Brown's, in quotes, fields of hay just to listen and smell. I think it opens my eyes to God all around me. So that's the story I wanted to share. Thanks.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. And I'm trying to catch up here on the chat as well. Yes, I think it is St. Stephen's, and I'll try to find the link to that church too, so you can see them on Facebook if they've been able to update that with more pictures. Lynn. Hi, Lynn with the turkey.
Hi there. So I am originally from Philadelphia. And so honestly, my idea of New Jersey was all the refineries. So when they called it the Garden State, it's like, yeah, right, whatever. Well, now that I actually live in New Jersey, and I live in northern New Jersey specifically, I see what they mean about the Garden State. And because of where I live with some friends of mine. It's a relatively wealthy area. So there are a lot of horse farms around here and regular farms. There's a farm that I drive through regularly because it's on two sides of the road on my way to church. And it keeps rotating what is where. So he's had pigs, he's had chickens, he has sheep, he has a couple of donkeys, a couple of horses, and it keeps rotating who's where kind of thing. So it's neat to kind of see how he does that. But every once in a while I'll catch it just right where he has to walk some type of animal across the road. So then you just sit and you wait and you smile and you like, thanks, because and it's just makes me very grateful. Being from Philadelphia, I guess it is. I just love seeing all the deer around here and the fox. Didn't see the bear. I saw the aftermath of the bear, but I didn't see the bear. And just all the different animals that come through here and just go about their business and just trying to be mindful of, especially this time of year, they're going to be crossing the road. The deer are going to blend in. They're not paying attention. We need to be the ones to pay attention. And it's just really neat to just be up in this area and the trees and the fields and the animals and whatnot.
Thank you, Lynn. I loved in the pictures going by that somebody had just mentioned, just the wildlife in their backyard. And like, for me, it's the squirrels or chipmunks that sometimes get into our house that remind you, hey, we're here too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was fun. Well, so real quick, before we just had called a pastor finally on March 1st. But in that gap, we had a bunch of us going to water the lawn and all the greenery at the parsonage. So it would still look like someone lived there. And there were so many times I would time it just right that this herd of deer would come through. Like the first night it was like 3. And then by the time I was done, there were like 10 deer that would just come walking through. And it was like the mamas and the babies, and they're all walking through. And then a fox run by, and I'm like taking pictures. Like, people probably think I'm nuts. But I'm like, if that ever stops fascinating me, there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They help us remember that childlike instinct to watch and listen, as Sharon was highlighting. Yes, Deacon Myra, you're up.
I like to thank God for all the people who help other people in schools and hospitals. I was having a conversation with a church member about, because I was a school social worker. And I said, if anybody wants to ask anything about what the temperature is of behavior and life, talk to a school social worker. And school social workers like work their buns off with kids who have trauma, homeless. One social worker she found that there was a kid living in the library. So I'd like to thank God for all of those people who help other people, and sometimes, a lot of times, work more hours than their day. And I think we all need to thank God for those people, and people, from churches who help, but those people are like right in the thick of things. And it's not always an easy job, and there's some sadness, but we just stay. When I was working, I'm retired, we just stayed in there. And I was thinking about that today. It's just amazing the kind of work that has to be done in schools in the city of Baltimore, where there's just, all different kind of things going on and things that the kids go through. You gotta be a soldier to be in there. And I thank God for all those people.
Amen. Amen, for sure. Yes, Cheryl, go ahead. You can unmute.
I certainly second what everyone's already said. I wanted to add that I'm grateful for the wisdom that I have learned from many other people. And this year, one of the most interesting books I've ever read was Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's both a scientist and a storyteller and weaves all this together. And so I'm so grateful for some of the wisdom and concepts I've learned from reading this book and discussing it with others. And just a couple, it's just filled with wonderful stories and learnings, but a couple that I'll highlight is, one of them is honorable harvest. That concept is that you take only what is given, and you don't take everything, but only what you need. And that's, when you look around, there's so many places where people are taking everything from the earth. And so I thought that's a really important one to remember. Reciprocity is another one that's really struck me. And that one is that in gratitude for all that Mother Earth has given us, that we in return need to show Mother Earth our loving attention and our care for her beauty and well-being. And then let's see, I sent a couple of pictures, but I'm not sure how to share them.
I will do that for you.
Okay, that would be great.
See him?
Yeah, that's one of them. There's another one too.
Hey.
Yeah, they're okay. This is my husband. After reading while we were reading the book this year with some other people, we also learned about the way of the three sisters, and that's the concept of how indigenous people plant corn, beans, and squash together. And when you plant them together, they yield more per acre when they're planted this way, because each of them contributes something to the whole. The corn provides the support for the beans to climb up. The beans fix the nitrogen for all of the plants. And then the squash shade the roots. And besides it being a nutritious combination of foods, it's also a teaching that each of us have our unique gifts to use in the world, and that when we work together, all of us can flourish. And so that's my inspiration to pass along, well, to myself to remember, but to pass along, to use your gift to take care of each other, work together, and all will be fed and nourished. And this is a picture when I harvested some of the corn. Thank you.
Cheryl, sorry, Cheryl, you need to tell us how that corn tasted. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, it was, turned out very well, and it was a good harvest. I had 1 year or two from every one of the seeds that I planted, so that was
Wow.
fabulous. Sister 2 was eaten by rabbits, so I'm gonna have a lot to learn. And Sister 3, the squash, you have to plant things in just the right time, as I've learned. And because of bad weather, the timing was off, so the corn was already very tall when the squash started coming up. So they were a little bit too shaded until after the corn was finished, and then we got a couple of squash. But so I have a lot to learn about growing the Three Sisters. But
Whenever I
feast with the other people that read the book, and we made a Three Sister soup.
Oh, all with your own stuff?
Well,
Did you have enough?
What we used the corn, but I didn't have enough beans, or I had to add other stuff, but
Excellent.
the idea was there.
Excellent. Excellent. Whenever I've experimented with gardening, I realize I am so grateful for all of the farmers, and talk about
Exactly.
faith, talk about needing faith and resilience. So Jean,
Exactly.
hi, did you come off mute so you could share with us?
Well, I'd be happy to. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, Advent Lutheran Church.
Yay.
And we grew the Three Sisters several years ago with the same intentions, Cheryl, that you did. And we weren't real successful. So I think you did better than we did. But yeah, I'd like to share just a little bit. Our church has a very involved food pantry garden, and so we've been. I think this past season we grew 5,600 pounds of fruits and vegetables, and shared with 3 food pantries in Madison, the west side of Madison, which is a blessing that we can do that. We put the garden to bed, given the temperatures and what's going on, but several of the team still continue to work in one of our cooperative community partnered food pantries, which is near our church. And today I was one of them. So to continue this, we go and we have a Whole Foods in Madison, which gives a lot of their food, extra food, and donates it to food pantries. And so I picked it up, and along with a few others, and took it to our partner food pantry. And it just, to me, it was the full circle of what we were starting last March and beginning to plant. We put the garden to bed, but we're still continuing this partnership of providing food to those that need it. And we have a really good group that is engaged, and I must say our whole congregation is engaged and in this mission of creation stewardship. And so boy, I mean, talk about a Thanksgiving blessing.
Thank you, Jean. I think I added the right link, the Madison Christian Community Food Pantry, right? That's
right.
Yeah. And I got to visit there. And at the time, you guys also had a chicken named Phoebe. I'm sure she's not still around.
She's not, but we still have 3. There's 3 of them still going.
But yeah, your team really was also in that soil call that we had. And so many people were just so amazed. Like beyond what words were shared, you guys helped share this visual blessing of being able to go to church with all of that sustains you and sustains life around you. Your community is surrounded by life-giving things. And you have the benefit of having the land to use that. But yeah, that was
exactly
grateful for sharing your story too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I also have stories that have come in via email. And Deacon Meyer, are you still on, or did you have to leave the screen? In which case I wanted to share the refrain that you had shared. I'll wait, Myra, see if you might come back. First off, I want to share a somewhat similar story. Deacon Meyer, you're there. Do you want to share the refrain that you had lifted up as a good tool, a shield?
Yes. There's a song, it's not considered a spiritual, but a sort of a gospel type song. The verses are kind of harder to sing, but the song says, "We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed us yet." And then you sing, "Oh," you say, "Can't turn around because we've come this far by faith." And that is always in my head, through everything that's going on in different places. And I have to stop and think that he's never failed us. And so when those times are really bad, we have to say to ourselves, we've come this far with the faith that we have. He's never failed us, and he'll keep us going. So that kind of sustains me. And even talking to other church members, or if things are going on, that's what, we've come this far by faith. So that keeps me going. It keeps me hopeful, because the world is pretty crazy right now. I'm wondering if I need to go to a gun shop to protect myself. That's where we are in this country. So it's going to get scary for people like me and my kid. I don't have kids, but my nieces and my nephews. So I got to keep saying that to keep going.
Mm-hmm. It is a shield. Yeah. Amen. Thank you. The other story that came in that I don't think she's on the line, that I just wanted to lift up. Is Sharon Tyson? Sharon's not on the line. Is she Sharon Tyson? Okay. So she's writing in from New York. So hi all, is that okay? Does anybody else want to pipe in before I read a cool email from, okay, we're all good. Happy Thanksgiving. I would like to highlight some of my ministry reactions among my community. I've started the plans for a garden in the spring of 2022. All produce will be delivered to our local food pantry, which feeds approximately 170 families. Talking to some people in the community has inspired me to move forward no matter what obstacles are presented. I began a composting campaign by purchasing 6 large compost tumblers for my congregation. Then I asked people who would be interested in a personal kitchen-sized compost bucket to feed the tumblers. 25 members responded. These pails were provided for free to members who signed up. Even the vendor was gracious enough and gave discounts and free merchandise. They are excited about helping this year in new ways. God bless them. After a rough 20 months of COVID and many COVID deaths, people are ready to move forward. In speaking to some people about the project, the woman who owns the apple farm saved us bags of apple peels each week to help start the composting process. Then a gentleman who rents part of her fields had many eggplants left and donated them to the pantry. The only thing he asked in return were prayers of healing. as he has stage 4 cancer. Family and friends have started to bring in cardboard, pine needles, and other compostable items. It's been overwhelmingly beautiful to see people helping those they do not know. The garden will be built late winter, and we will have plenty of compost to begin the project. Our Ecumenical Lay Council is so excited about the gardens being built and can already see the potential to help many with food insecurity within our town. Sometimes I feel like this ministry is a runaway train. Everything's happening quickly and without having to beg for help. Doors continue to open at every step. I'm extremely blessed and will continue to lift all the donors who help and those in terrible need in prayers. Many blessing and much to be thankful for this year. So that's from Sharon. That is good news indeed. I love that all of that is kind of surrounding this action of composting together. Let's let food rot together. Go ahead, Mark. I see your hand.
Yeah, we've got a Fuji apple tree that's kind of winding down, and most of the dregs now are getting into our compost bin. Our congregation, St. John's, just finished 7 weeks with dialogues on race from Spark House. And, Myra's concerns that, many of us share, even though not that intimately and directly, got me thinking about last Friday, I had a 92-minute conversation with a 91-year-old Black woman that goes to St. John's, and we were together for years at First English Lutheran Church in a tough neighborhood in Sacramento, closed in 2011. Had a great community garden then. But in Dialogues on Race, Lenny Duncan talks about community gardens. But the chapter before that, I think, page 106, if you've gone through it or have it, it talks about the deep roots of Black families in the land. And part of that 90 minutes with Doris was talking about what she's trying to do to hang on to one of their 2 farms in Texas with so many heirs and people who just want to move on with their lives and want to be compensated. But she's the matriarch, she's an accountant, she knows how to, work the law and finances, but it's, I think we're going to look together for allies to try to hang on to that remnant near Paris, Texas. And they've lost one was already taken or threatened by the Keystone Pipeline. Green the Church and the Black Food Security Network, I think, have links to people that can maybe help her with land trusts and that sort of thing. But it's, the clock's ticking on a 91-year-old, and her deep love for that land and the poetic paragraph in that chapter on Dialogues on Race really spoke to her situation. So my gratitude is that she opened and shared her deep family history with me that still has chapters to be written, good ones, we hope. So thanks.
Thank you. Who else? And you're welcome to think of other people's stories. Thor, go ahead, unmute. Thor, can you? Okay.
We're beginning to mobilize the congregations that I work with to show our gratitude and thanks for our peers to the north of us, which are facing maybe 1,000-year flood. The amount of water that is falling right now and is forecast to fall through Sunday will cause all of the rivers to exceed what is known to be records in their history. One of the smaller rivers, called the Nooksack, went 51 feet over its flood stage. The Fraser is apparently the big river in Canada has taken out the main road to Vancouver. And what happens, because this is all a delta, is once you get out of the riverbeds, it just spreads out of the whole area. And so the congregations will be basically shelters for an extended period of time. We expect the water to be around for a week. And so this is a lot of uncertainty, and we're just utterly thankful that we have thought this through, we are prepared, we have these networks, and we will support our peers in this time of trial. I cannot give you a better understanding of what it is like to be of service to our neighbors. I think that is the most profound thing I can say about thankfulness.
And yeah, and unfortunately, our churches are asked to do these things now, not just talk about them.
Well, this one, my daughter's mother lives in the floodplain, and they're estimating it's going to be 6 feet deep.
Mhm.
I mean, this is over the whole delta, and it just immobilizes everything. It's going to be a quiet Thanksgiving. It's going to be one to remember too.
Hmm.
Where in Washington do you live for?
I live in Bothell. Where this is hitting is Bellingham North.
Okay.
A lot of the rivers, they received a fairly heavy snowpack, and then a moisture stream from the tropical areas hit it, and it all melted and went down the rivers at once. And so that's where you got 51 feet on the Nooksack. The big worry is the Fraser is getting a stupendous amount of moisture. And when it goes into flood stage, it's already taken
We have
out.
another strong atmospheric curve that's going to be moving through BC, bringing in more heavy rainfalls
Oops.
throughout the coastal and southern section.
Was that you, Thor?
No, it's because the
Right.
website has a link to automatically spawn a video. It is the thing I cannot say enough good things about is it really pays to make these connections, because I've worked in New Orleans, and I just say glowing things about their community. And sometimes it is a crisis that brings us out to really shine.
Mm-hmm.
We are not our houses. We are not our churches. We are not our buildings. And although I am thankful for the food that I have, it's a community that will ultimately get us through the harder times. And it isn't to say I'm chasing an ambulance and wishing for disaster, but we have one unfolding before us, and it is the time for us to shine.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Thank you, Thor. Thank you. And I didn't want to share too many resources, but I am going to find the Climate Justice Ministries has a great resilience toolkit. And that is what I'm seeing, that more churches are ready, rather than just being ready to pick up pieces, being ready to really prepare for the known. So Leslie, did you have your hand up? Did I see you waving, Leslie?
Briefly.
All right. Sorry, you can't get out of it. I noticed. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Leslie Sand in Decorah, Iowa, and I go to my church is First Lutheran Church. And I first want to say that I'm quite inspired by everybody's stories. And I'm grateful for all the things that people are doing. And this is weird, but in a very strange, I cannot say that I'm grateful for the pandemic, but the pandemic has brought us Zoom, or at least I feel like it has. And via Zoom, I have made new friends all over the country, including you, Phoebe. And, and my antidote to despair, as Joan Baez says, is activism for our climate. And so I would not be nearly as hopeful and full of my antidote, my hope, if I, had not spent this time that I've spent over the last year and a half over Zoom, meeting so many people that are doing this work in so many different ways. And so that's obviously not the only thing that I'm grateful for, but it's kind of finding the light someplace, and it helps. So
Thank you. It does kind of feel like we all crawled under a rock and then found each other there.
that's very good, Phoebe. Very good. Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, if anybody wants to share stories but wants to wait until we stop recording, that is fine too. I will save like 10 minutes at the end, but I really appreciate you. This doesn't go far and wide, but to hear everybody else's stories is really, it is a resource in itself. And I thank you for being willing to share. And I do feel, if anybody's ever read Frederick, about the field mouse, Frederick, that gathers in the warmth of the sunshine and does all these other seemingly unimportant things before the winter time while the rest of the mice are gathering food. And then finally, when the winter hits and they're all out of food and need artistic inspiration and soul food, he brings it out. Anyways, I'll send you a link to that too, because I love that story, but I feel like that's what we're doing here. Deb, I'm glad to see you too, Deb. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything or had any other stories.
No, thank you I'm just glad to be included, and the stories give me a lot of hope and courage, and I just thanks that I can participate in the listening.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And Lisa, I know you're there and adding great things to the text, but I really wanted to lift up your story about 25 monarchs coming out on your husband's birthday. I think is just, talk about a wonderful birthday present. I think that's amazing. Could not have planned that better.
It was amazing. My husband couldn't believe it. He was home that day. He saw every single last one emerge from Christmas.
That's amazing.
It was incredible.
So thank you for sharing that too. Oh, good. Lisa also just sent the link to register for that resilience training. Which, yeah, I really, unfortunately, more and more people are gonna need to know how to do that. But again, it is amazing what we can offer each other during this time. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, with your hand up graciously.
I'll just mention, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I got we're all buried in email, but I got an email today from the city of Sacramento that said the report for whatever bill number, it was 1000 Senator Assembly, passed in 2016, requiring local, county, and city general plans to have an environmental justice component. So when I was with the Lutheran Office of Public Policy in California, we lobbied for that bill. We supported that bill. Interfaith Power and Light supported it. And, I'm retired now and kind of drifted away. And here the Element report has been written by a pretty well-known sociologist and anthropologist from UC Davis and private consultant. So I'm anxious to see what it looks like. But it does address the history of things like redlining and the consequences and how to repair some of those consequences. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to see legislation that's kind of abstract really made concrete in your own community.
Yeah, especially with all the roles that you've played in making legislation happen, or how many times often not happen, to see it being utilized is wonderful. I'm grateful you got to see that and experience it. Thank you. So in the next couple minutes, what I'd like to share too, I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I think I got this right. I also just am so grateful that I have to admit that it was March 2019, that we had a board meeting where I really had to explain to my board that I know we had enough money to keep our website going, but other than that, we went into this pandemic not really knowing how much longer we were going to be an official nonprofit, to be honest with you. And then while we were all under that rock, I feel like everybody got to find out about Lutherans Restoring Creation, not just because Zoom was more prevalent and more people were listening, but I have to say too, it's because I have an incredible board of directors that got creative and first thought, how are we going to help people? Because it was then that summer that we realized pastors and worship committees need a break. They need to figure out how else can we reach people. So out of that commitment to just serve this church, our board of directors pulled together those online worship services. And since then, we've tripled in membership, and yeah, we can exist now. So I really appreciate our board of directors and all of the volunteers that I'm kind of amazed when I think back to just the fact that we're here for a purpose, not just to be in our little echo chamber, because we need each other. And I want to share this. This is the next thing that I'm grateful for my board for helping create. And I'll just start closing with this. You guys are the first to see this. Can you hear it okay?
At Lutherans Restoring Creation, our goal is to inspire, connect, and include faith communities and their leaders in our shared concern for the well-being of God's creation. Through our volunteer-driven programming and resources, we hope to inspire others to care for God's creation through supporting the efforts of faith leaders and community members while advocating for change within and beyond the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We aim to connect Lutherans around the country in our mutual concern through resource sharing and storytelling. And finally, we strive to include all communities in our work, from farmer to city dweller, as we learn new ways to celebrate God's creation while we advocate for its restoration. To learn more about Lutherans Restoring Creation or to partner in our work, visit lutheransrestoringcreation.org. Together, we can cultivate hope and healing for all.
So you can tell while I'm grateful, because you guys know that I am not the digital person that put all that together. Pastor Kristen Koshman put that together, and she's our board president and also just talented and creative and a great team. And I'm just really grateful that they've helped usher through a very difficult time, as I am all of you, because being able to know that I can show up even a couple days before Thanksgiving when most people are on the road, I'm just really grateful to have you all here with us. And I'd love to be able, yes, thanks, Lynn. Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. You'll be getting a little email reminder about that too, along with every other nonprofit you've ever said hi to, right? But I would, because it's a small, fairly intimate group, I'm going to try, it might be a little confusing to end with a prayer like this, but I think we can do it. When I get together with our youth groups and nobody said anything all night, because it's, a bunch of teens in a circle and they don't want to talk too much until they're not in the circle, then they want to talk. But I love to do the one-word prayers. So if we could go around, now how are we going to go around? You could just pipe out one word or phrase that you're grateful for. And when we think everybody's done, we all say amen. And that's our closing prayer. So one word or phrase of something that you're grateful for, maybe even just today. And I will get started. I'm going to say sunshine.
Family.
Music.
Friends.
Soil.
Puppies.
My family.
Birds of all sorts.
Food in bins.
Community.
My church. My Lord. Well, that's 2 words.
That's
Jesus.
okay. It's a lot.
Jesus.
Pollinators.
Lines of phrase, friends who live Christ's word.
Leslie's adding visuals to the prayer. Puppy.
Those are cute puppies.
Miles.
Joyful noises.
Thankful for my voice.
Thankful for the opposition because it makes me stronger.
Arguments.
Outreach.
Neighbors.
Creation.
And may all the people say amen.
Amen.
And
Thank you all so much. I will stop the recording